been here before. A little bit of housekeeping. First piece of housekeeping, this meeting is being recorded. So if you would like to change your names or anything, please do. I generally don't read names out from the chat, and the video will just be my face. So it's all good. If you, that should be fine for everyone, I hope. If you've not done this before, basically what happens is I take live questions. So send questions. I will do my best to answer them in some kind of cohesive manner. There should be a chat box either down or to the side of you. There's a meeting in there already from LinkFairy, so hopefully you can all see where that's going. In case you've not met me before, my name is Jo Southall. I'm an independent occupational therapist, and I am a specialist in basically managing long-term conditions. So any of the old kind of complicated overlapping things that the NHS tends to not know what to do with, that's my wheelhouse. I do also live with hypermobile EDS, POTS, and some other stuff myself. So what I'll be sharing with you all this evening is generally a mix of clinical experience, research, and personal things that have worked for me. So hopefully it will be a useful session. I do have a couple of pre-asked questions, so I'm just going to start with those. And then any questions that have miraculously appeared in the chat, I will get onto, or I will pick a random topic to discuss in the hopes that it's useful if nobody has any questions. Okay, so question number one, first wheelchair. When getting your first wheelchair, what are the most important features to look for in a standard self-propelled wheelchair? An active chair, even secondhand, is out of budget. Unlikely to get one from Wheelchair Services, but it's a long wait anyway. There's so many options and features, and it's overwhelming. Tried a lot of showrooms around, but no one has a narrow wheelchair my size for demo. So that's a difficult one, and it's difficult because pretty much anything that is not an active user chair, manual chair, will not be self-propellable for most bendy people. It just won't. So hypermobile people tend to struggle in terms of hand function, in terms of grip strength, in terms of posture, and in terms of shoulder and wrist injuries in particular, as a result of being manual wheelchair users. So because of that, what we tend to do is basically kind of cope better with really lightweight active usery things. If you don't have the budget for a lightweight active user chair, generally what I would say is don't get the bog standard option. You won't be able to use it anywhere besides hospital floors and maybe supermarkets without getting some kind of repetitive strain, pain type inflammation. Maybe have a look at like secondhand scooters or like powered options instead, and see if there's a way that you can just bridge the gap funding wise by getting yourself something that will do for now until you can save up for a better chair. Now, wheelchair bits we tend to think of as being like an item, like here is my wheelchair. In reality, it's a lot easier to go for a slightly more modular design. So my wheelchair, the total cost of my wheelchair, if I was to buy it new right now, would be about £10,000. I never paid a solid lump sum of £10,000. What I did was upgrade bits and buy pieces. Some of those pieces have lasted longer than others. So the bits that are still good get moved onto the new chair when I have to replace bits that are a problem. So yes, the amount of money it's worth is astronomical. And I'm angry that it costs that much, but it is a game changer. But it's never been a set expense at that amount of money. So things like cushions, even if your wheelchair is not provided by the NHS, you can often get cushions through Wheelchair Services because it's part of their pressure care initiative to basically support pressure care, particularly for people that are maybe slightly high risk, such as people with, I don't know, fragile skin that doesn't heal well. So that might be worth getting in touch about. The other option would be to have a look around like secondhand selling sites, particularly anything disability specific. So there used to be a few kind of disability like Facebook groups. The other thing would be to have a look on eBay. A lot of the major wheelchair sellers sell ex-demo wheelchairs on eBay. They are still expensive. We're still talking 4 figures for the most part, but it will be low 4 figures compared to high 4 figures, which does make a big, big difference. In terms of kind of things to consider when you are looking at wheelchair-y type stuff, I would think about what you want it for and what you're aiming to do with it before you think about anything else. So it's very easy to go, oh, it needs to be as light a weight as possible. But actually, if your bigger need is for decent postural support, you're going to have to compromise on weight in order to get better back support. So thinking about what you want to do with it is the starter point to, what the best chair for you is going to be. As an example, if I am using my wheelchair, generally it's not as often for short trips. Normally it's for things like a whole day of university lectures or a trip to a conference, or a day of bird watching or something. So I don't use my chair constantly, but when I use it, I tend to be in it for a long time. And it tends to be either if I'm sat still in it or if I'm on rough ground with it. Those are the things that I need it to be good at. So for me, Tiny Caster's lightweight active usury frames, not quite so much use. Whereas if your main purpose is to get you from A to B and you're going on public transport or you're lifting your car in and out of a boot, lifting your wheelchair in and out of your car boot even, weight is going to be the major thing to consider. So what I would say is think about what you want it for and then think about your options. If at all possible, try a few different things in the run-up to you actually making that purchasing decision. So things like shop mobility or borrowing scooters and wheelchairs from supermarkets or attractions, or even the Red Cross, like try a few different options and see what works for you. In an ideal world, pretty much everyone with a mobility impairment would be gifted a shipping container that had one of every kind of mobility aid in it, because it's very, very difficult to make like the perfect mobility aid. But realistically, that just kind of doesn't happen for most of us. So I hope some of that is sort of useful. There is a little bit of information on my website about wheelchair things, and I have done appointments in the past where I've just worked with people to come up with a list of criteria, and then they can then take the criteria to a showroom and go, okay, here's what I want to buy. I need something that does this. It's not ideal, but hopefully some of that is at least a little bit helpful. Okie dokie. Thumb support for eating ice cream. I love that this is a priority. This brings me so much joy. Eating a Magnum ice cream really hurts my thumb. I've tried hand therapy exercises and a thumb splint and it still hurts. Is there anything else I can try, or do I have to accept that my ice cream eating days are over? This is brilliant. Like, questions like this make me love being an occupational therapist. Thumb splints, I think, are useful. Some things I would consider would be, first and foremost, swap hands. So often just holding things for a long time, regardless of how well supported your joints are, it's that fixed position gripping that causes the problem. So if you can swap hands, or even try various combinations like holding an ice cream stick between your fingers. So rather than it being a pinch motion like this, it's like that with the stick stabilized against your palm, or even in the middle of your fingers, actually. This is making me want ice cream, but see if you can experiment with different grip options, basically, to see whether you can stabilize that slightly more effectively, because what tends to happen is that the smaller joints you're using, the greater amount of force you're putting through them in order to achieve a stable grip. So if you can do something with multiple joints, or you can hold it in different ways, generally that will be a little bit easier. The other thing you might like to try is just putting your Magnum in a bowl and eating it with a spoon, which seems a bit weird, but you would get the joy of Magnum, but without having to kind of pinch grip that. So yeah, a spoon in a bowl, or try kind of between different fingers and see if that makes a difference. If none of those things work, please come back next month and I will have, I'm sure, eaten some Magnums in the meantime and I'll investigate. Lovely. Okay. What else have we got? Is that all my pre-asked ones? Yes, it is. So, heading on over to the chat. I recently had to have surgery for early breast cancer. They are saying I'm going to need radiotherapy. I'm worried about radiotherapy on my loose, stretchy skin. Okay. Firstly, I'm sorry you're going through like a rubbish health thing, and I hope all of the treatment is going well so far. I would actually see if you've got access to somebody like a Macmillan cancer nurse, or if you've got like a link person or a key point of contact, speak to them about that. I am 100% sure somebody will have been in this situation. It may be that it's kind of unavoidable and that you need the treatment for the thing that's the bigger problem. But it may be that actually we can't necessarily avoid you having the treatment, but there may be kind of treatments, extra treatments they can add on to protect your skin a little bit, or to help with any healing if it is a problem. I'm not aware of any kind of studies or research or anything highlighting this as being an issue. It's certainly not something I've heard about just in general kind of hypermobility community type things, but I would maybe try speaking to either Macmillan or your oncologist about this one and see what they have to say. The other person that might be a useful kind of point of contact would be dermatology. So it may be worth seeing if your oncologist can pull in somebody from dermatology to see if they've got any advice for that, particularly given that dermatology does deal with skin cancer and things. So they've probably got experience with like skin and radiotherapy. So it might be worth a dermatology referral, but I would definitely speak to your cancer treatment team and see what they have to say first, because they may just go, oh yeah, we did that last week, it's not a problem. Fingers crossed. I hope it's not a problem. Okay. Okay. Hello. I currently have a lot of pain in one hip. MRI shows extensive damage and hip replacement looks likely. I'm wondering what I can do to help myself at the meantime, e.g. raised seat, shoes with cushioning and orthotics, cushion between the knees to sleep, etc. All of those things. Do all of those things. All of the pillows would be very, very sensible. I would also consider speaking to a GP about anti-inflammatories. One of the things that tends to happen when we are avoiding an area of damage is that we end up with corresponding damage in like a different bit of your body. So if, as an example, you've got a lot of left-sided hip issues, you can end up with right-sided lower back and ankle issues, as an example, because you're putting all of your weight on the other side to avoid the injury that's the problem. So because of that, mobility aids would be a really sensible thing to consider. And I would particularly have a look at crutches, as in plural. So a lot of people who've got one-sided body issues, but don't have to be non-weight bearing, tend to use one crutch. And the difficulty with that is that it reinforces that you're distributing your weight really unevenly. And particularly if you're using it for a long time, you can end up kind of asymmetrically wearing yourself out and developing spots of tension or kind of muscle spasm and things as a result of that. So using crutches on both sides helps to keep your body straight and in good alignment, and it promotes you using a normal walking action, but with just a little bit less weight put through that damaged hip. I would also, if you haven't been referred already, refer yourself to physiotherapy, and I would particularly look for orthopedic specialist physiotherapists. Physiotherapists are really great at like the rehabilitation exercise kind of thing, but they're also really great at like other treatments, particularly around pain. So things like ultrasound or infrared or massage or building strength pre-operatively and post-operatively would be really, really sensible, and I would get very proactive about that. Hip replacement surgery, and I'm not saying this to like frighten you, I'm saying this because I think it's important you know, a hip replacement is brutal. You are going to get the surgical equivalent of being up in order to fix the damage. They're going to have to damage you a little bit more. I would not expect the immediate post-surgical recovery to be pleasant. although now probably isn't that pleasant either. So maybe by comparison, it will be better. But I would go into that expecting to have quite a long rehab and for it to be quite painful and quite a lot of hard work. Because of that, what you want is for the rest of you to be in really excellent condition, so you only have to focus on that one hip. So if you can, build as much strength as possible, improve your use of mobility aids, get your pain management strategies really well sorted before you have to go to surgery, you will come out of that with everything you need in place to make the best recovery possible. And hopefully all will go very smoothly. But yes, if you haven't been to physio already, definitely go. I would also consider asking your GP for a community occupational therapy referral. So community occupational therapists can come to your house, do an assessment of, whatever functional challenges you've got going on, or whatever mobility needs you have, and can provide mobility aids on the NHS. And these may include things like a second handrail for the stairs. It might include things like aids to get you in and out of the bath or shower more easily. It might include aids to get you off the toilet seat more easily, because that's like a whole other hip issue as well. It may even include kind of aids to help you roll over in bed or to help you sit up in bed, that kind of thing as well. So definitely social services, community OT referral, physiotherapy referral, crutches, and I would definitely speak to your GP about pain management and inflammation management. Because what you basically want to avoid is letting the rest of you develop problems as a result of the hip problem. So hopefully that is useful, and I really have got my fingers crossed that the surgery goes well and you are less beaten up and feeling better soon. Okay. HEDS has manifested badly in my knees, which have become wobbly and cartilage is damaged, grade 4. Knee braces either don't fit under my clothing or press too hard on my kneecaps. Are there any specialized thin or flexible braces to be worn for stabilization? Yes. However, one of the things with hypermobility and cartilage damage is that hypermobile people tend to get kind of wear and tear in like non-traditional places. And the reason for that is that if your range of motion extends further than it should, you're rubbing on cartilage that is supposed to just be there as an emergency backup. It's not supposed to be a regular source of like wear and tear. So if you have cartilage damage in areas that are hyperextension related, what you need are braces that prevent you from hyperextending. And the tough, like hinged cage braces are the ones that do that best. Anything soft and thin will offer postural support, compression, and a little bit of stabilization, but will not totally block hyperextension. Yeah, what I would say is like the open cage style knee braces that don't actually have anything over your kneecap would probably be your best bet. So I think DonJoy rebranded, but something like the DonJoy knee braces would probably be a sensible idea. That said, if you did want a lighter weight, more flexible option, custom made compression garments would probably be your best bet. So just grab something from my stash. So these are some of my older ones. So these are from a company called DM Orthotics. There are a couple of other companies in the UK. One is Jobskin, and they go under the brand name Medi Garments, I think. And the other one is Allard UK, and Allard have an essentials range, which is like this. No, Elements range, which is like this. And then they've also got like a generic hypermobility one. So with garments like this, what you're looking at is a single layer of Lycra over some areas, and then a reinforced double or triple layer of Lycra over other areas. So the aim is to give you a little bit of light compression everywhere, and then a heck of a lot of compression over areas of instability. One of the optional extras they can add in, just find the right section. That's a better example. So one of the optional extras you can add in terms of reinforcements is for on the back of the knee, I don't know if you can make out the pink stitching, there's just a cross here. So this is the back of my knee, and then the front of my knee is the other side. The cross on the back discourages hyperextension. It doesn't flat out block it. So something like this would give you stability and a massive increase in like body awareness, but it's not going to give you that really hard, firm stabilization. What you may find is that something like this works well for like pottering around the house or kind of gentle laying down based Pilates. But if you're going to be riding a bike or you're going to be walking on uneven surfaces, you're going to need something a little bit more firm, shall we say. So it may be that you actually need multiple braces for different situations. Obviously, quite a lot of these are going to be quite expensive. So my suggestion for splints and braces for people in the UK is always to get a referral to see an NHS orthotist. So orthotics departments deal specifically in splints and braces, and they are covered under the NHS. You can get compression garments like this covered on the NHS as well. Sometimes it just requires a little bit of extra paperwork, but it's doable. So I would say that would be something I would look into. If you've got a consultant or a orthopedic person that you're seeing currently, they should be able to refer you. If not, speak to your GP, and then they should be able to refer you. The referral process for lycra garments specifically needs to mention like lycra garment or lycra suit or a particular brand in order to be accepted in most cases. So if your GP is not sure how to write that referral, get them to phone orthotics and ask what needs to go on the referral to achieve this. Otherwise, you're going to end up going back and forth a lot. Bureaucracy. But yes, so hopefully that helps a little bit. I would say the other thing to maybe have a little look at would be kinesiology tape. However, if you're going to be using it a lot, you're then at risk of like skin damage from the adhesive. So it may give you a little bit of support in situations that aren't particularly brace friendly. As an example, swimming can be quite limiting in terms of splints and braces, but is actually really brilliant exercise, particularly for people that have got cartilage damage. But the Allard UK, their high-mo compression garments are swim rated. So I have been referred for this and I've been fitted for this, but I have not received mine yet. I will feedback when I do get it. But they don't have the option of like extra behind the knee support. So it's going to be a little bit of a kind of a compromisey situation. You may well end up needing multiple items, but the starting point for that would be a referral to orthotics to assess what kind of support is going on. Yeah, hopefully that's helpful. The other thing I would say is if you're currently not seeing a physiotherapist, please get yourself referred. The cartilage at this point is probably a lost cause. But if you can stabilize that joint more effectively with decent amounts of muscle, you may find the wobbliness is at least in some way sort of reversible, even if the cartilage damage is kind of not. So yeah, hope that helps a little bit. Oh my gosh, LinkFairy, you're a genius. I don't know if anyone's seen that for like ice creams. You just stick a fork in it and then you've got like a comfy fork to hold on to rather than a Magnum stick. Brilliant. Love that. Okay. Any advice on how to handle tremors? Mostly hands, off and on throughout the day, sometimes legs and feet too, starting to impact being able to dress, buttons on work uniform, handwriting and eating. My first one would be, has this been investigated? Because tremors, generally speaking, are not a classic symptom of hypermobility syndromes. Anyone who has tremors as a result of this either tends to have another condition or there tends to be something else going on that has drastically exacerbated this symptom. So as an example, I only ever get tremors if my magnesium levels are through the floor and I've really, really pushed myself into a POTS flare-up. So, or if it's a weird neurological migraine thing. So I would just, if this hasn't been investigated, go and see a GP and get it investigated. If it has been thoroughly investigated and you know what the cause is and there are no kind of treatments available, at that point, then we can start doing some OT stuff. One of the things to try would be compression garments. So part of the reason some people struggle with tremors is proprioceptive feedback. So giving yourself a little bit of extra compression can sometimes give your body the feedback it needs to be able to kind of function more effectively. So for those of you that may not have come across this word before, proprioception is the body's ability to work out where you are in relation to the rest of your environment, but also the rest of your own body. So people with good proprioception can walk through door frames with no problems. People with bad proprioception get the door handle stuck down their dressing gown sleeve and then wobble over and hit the other side and then trip over their own feet and then somehow make it to the sofa. So compression can be a useful thing because it kind of just gives your body slightly more accurate, like you are here information so that you can navigate your environment more effectively. The other thing I would start to have a think about would be wrist weights. So I actually don't know the process behind why this works. I'll have to look it up. But essentially, some people with certain types of tremor find that adding weight actually improves things. So typically most people find that their tremor is worst when they're trying to do fine motor control things with like light, like not heavy stuff, basically. So if you are doing something close to your body and you've got weight on your wrists or the thing you're dealing with is heavy, you may find your tremor is less of a problem. So essentially that's like something to consider. Most people find that a fairly lightweight is useful. There's quite a lot of information online if you Google wrist weights and tremor. One concern here for a lot of hypermobile people would be like muscle fatigue. So what you don't want to do is add so much weight that the tremor is solved, but you're then getting really, really tired in terms of muscle function. So there's probably a little bit of a sweet spot that might require some experimentation. This is also not the sort of advice I would recommend doing for extended periods of time, all day, every day, immediately. I would work up to it gradually. So just use them for maybe like handwriting to start with, or like handwriting and brushing your teeth, or handwriting, brushing your teeth, and then eating, and then kind of gradually build up to slightly longer periods of time. And I would still take them off if you are not doing anything as well, just to save yourself a little bit of energy. In terms of dressing, buttons on work uniform, probably the easiest thing, well, not the easiest, this is a lot of work to do, but it'll be worth it when accomplished, would be to basically swap your work uniform out for an accessible version. So if you were to basically unstitch the buttons and then add Velcro between the two layers and then restitch the buttons on top, your work uniform will look exactly the same, but it will have a Velcro closure rather than a button closure, which tends to be easier, just much, much easier. You can also try things like poppers or magnetic strips, but Velcro is generally like the easiest. Magnets don't use if you've got like a cardiac pacemaker or anything like that, or you spend time with anyone who has a pacemaker, because hugging magnets is just not a good idea. But yeah, other than that, some kind of accessible closure would be sensible. You can also get, it's called a button hook, but it's basically a gadget. It kind of looks like a chunky handle, and then it's got like a little kind of loop of wire on the other end. So what you would do is push the entire thing through the buttonhole, and then you basically loop the wire loop over a button and pull it back through. So rather than having to grip and pass the button between your hands, you're basically just pulling it through using the hook. Some people find that these are actually just like fiddly enough that it's not actually any use. Other people love them. So it's very much kind of worth experimenting with a little bit, just to see if you can, benefit from something like that. But button hooks would be the sensible one. You can sometimes bodge this with like craft tools as well. So like giant crochet hooks, something like that might work a little bit. It would be up to you to kind of experiment on that, but button hooks would be my advice there. Handwriting and eating. Cutlery wise and handwriting wise, one of the things it might be worth experimenting with is to see if your tremor is equally bad at different wrist or hand positions. So you may find that if you are, as an example, not twisting your wrist, there's less of a tremor. In which case, finding cutlery that allows you to keep your hand in that position would be beneficial. If you find there isn't much of a difference in terms of tremor severity and positioning, probably like adaptive cutlery isn't going to make a massive difference unless you're going for the ones that are specifically designed for tremor. So yeah, hopefully that's a little bit of help, maybe. We'll see how that goes. But yes, hopefully, Okay. Are supplements like MSM and type 2 collagen helpful for HEDS at all? Okay, so this is not my specialist area at all. As an occupational therapist, nutrition is not within my training. However, as a fellow hypermobile person, I've done a little bit of research on this. So collagen in particular doesn't seem to be much of an evidence base for. Basically, for people who have got faulty collagen because our bodies genetically produce extra faulty collagen, or like they can only, like we can't make good collagen. Giving our bodies more of the things that make collagen just allows us to more effectively produce rubbish collagen. It doesn't change anything about the process, so it doesn't allow us to suddenly make good collagen. This is particularly true for like topical collagen because the molecule collagen is too big to pass through your skin barrier. So it's not doing anything effectively, rubbing it in. If you've got hypermobility and then some kind of other condition that means you lack the nutrients that would typically be in supplements, they can be really useful. And then supplements that are components for things like recovery can be quite useful if, like me, you're the sort of bendy person that is pretty much always damaged in some way. So if you are injured constantly and your body is kind of fighting a constant battle to sort of repair everything before you re-injure it, having the foundational components for recovery in high quantities is theoretically useful. So things like proteins, things like MSM, can be useful. However, most of those can be got from like a decent kind of well-balanced diet. Now, the problem with that is that a lot of us, because of the hypermobility issues and the POTS issues and the mast cell issues, end up on quite restrictive diets. So supplementation is going to be more use if there are an awful lot of food groups that you just can't digest. Or if your digestive system doesn't seem to mind about food, it's just rubbish about digesting all of them. What I would say is find some specialist input for this. Don't just go, okay, well, these 5 supplements were recommended to me by somebody in Holland & Barrett. Find yourself a dietitian or a nutritionalist who is a specialist in hypermobility. And there are a few out there. I think I've got a list somewhere. Most of them I found on Instagram, weirdly. But, if you look for nutritionists that are specifically hypermobility experts, they're going to be able to help you work out what the most effective ones are going to be, rather than you ending up in a situation where you're just taking 20 different vitamins and hoping for the best, which tends to be expensive and also potentially a massive waste of money. Whereas expensive things that are definitely going to be beneficial are easily justifiable, slightly more easily justifiable. So Yeah, hopefully that's useful. Generally speaking, supplementation is there to replace things you can't get from food. So my first bit of advice, if I was in a support group talking to other Benny people, would be probably to look at what you're eating and whether that can be improved. And if that can't be improved, then we look at things you can get out of a pill or whatever. But yeah, find yourself a nutritionist or a dietitian would be sensible, I think. Or like qualified, certified herbal medicine practitioners. There aren't many of those, but there are a few, and they're really good as well. So. Okay, I've recently become an active chair user. Lovely. I was incredibly lucky to be given a chair on the NHS. I'm very aware that it's a perfect fit, but now I'm walking less, I'm putting on a bit of weight. I can't afford to outgrow my chair. What's the best exercise or weight management advice for somebody who's experiencing a positive, necessary but tricky reduction in mobility? I've got POTS. Is a rowing machine worth investing in or too hardcore? There are very, very few types of physical activity I would say are a flat out no for anyone. Generally speaking, my advice would be to start slow in small amounts for anything and see what your body tolerates. So, as an example, walking very, very reliably for me results in bursitis, inflammation, pain, injury. It just does. My POTS hates it as well. It's just not good for me. Cycling, on the other hand, fantastic. The last time I went out for a bike ride, I've got a tandem and me and my partner go out together, and we did 10 miles. I haven't done 10 miles on any form of transport for a very, very long time, other than passenger in a car. But it took us a while to build up to that. So it's not necessarily about going, which sport is best for me? It's how do I get from being a beginner in this sport to the point where it's actively helping me to stay fit. So pacing is really, really important, but also proprioceptively and kind of logically and sensibly, are you getting training? Are you getting support to use that piece of equipment safely? Can you get a gym membership? Sorry, 9,000 notifications coming through. If you've got a gym membership and work with a personal trainer, they can probably tell you which muscle groups you're supposed to be activating, what kind of posture you're supposed to have, what's a good number of reps to start with, how do you build up, how do you build a training program, all that kind of stuff. Those are the things you're going to be getting by having somebody else involved in the process. What I would say is that actually there are quite a lot of schemes on the NHS now that are like exercise referral schemes, and you would potentially be a really good candidate for one of those. What they do is basically you get your kind of referral through from your GP, and they match you up with the service that could meet your needs by finding you like an exercise form and a trainer who would be able to support you in that journey. And I think that's probably a sensible thing to do. Equally, it might be worth considering whether your summer and winter activity levels need to be different. So if you are like any of the other POTS people I work with, the height of summer is a very bad time to start a new exercise program because your POTS symptoms are going to be absolutely wild. Whereas starting an exercise program in autumn or spring or even winter allows you to build a tolerance for that before you then plateau during summer to keep your POTS happy and then go back to making progress again in autumn. So there are quite a lot of factors to kind of think about here, but hopefully some of that is at least a little bit useful. Rowing machines can be really good. The other thing I would actually consider would be a recumbent cycle. So being a wheelchair user, you're getting quite a lot of arm workout already. Cycling, but recumbent cycling, can be really good from a POTS perspective, and would focus on the muscle groups that you're now not using so much for walking. And again, would be something you could try out with a gym membership or even just a pay-as-you-go gym type subscription thingy. If you find trialing it in the gym that a particular piece of equipment happens to be fantastic for you, then you can go and buy one, knowing that it will be good. which is a much less scary commitment than hoping it will be good and having to fork out a lot of money. There are a lot of reselling sites for gym equipment out there. And Facebook Marketplace is chock full of gym equipment as well. So hopefully you can find something that works for you, but I would experiment with a gym and a personal trainer, or even get like a physiotherapy referral and see if they can link you up with some actual kind of rehab type exercises as well, with the aim of just improving your kind of fitness overall. I'm always kind of wary of talking about like weight loss advice type stuff, because I think it's not necessarily a useful factor to consider. If the change here is in your activity levels, then your activity levels are what need addressing. However, it can be useful to get a little bit of support or advice around maybe like what times of the day are best to eat at, as an example, or substitutions we can make that improve nutrition to support muscle building. So seeing a dietitian or a nutritionist might be a useful thing as well. Again, available on the NHS, ask for a referral and your GP should be able to sort you out. But I think actually, you know, for me, becoming a wheelchair user part-time was a really positive experience, but finding ways to exercise is a key kind of thing to overcome. So I hope your journey of exercise exploration goes well. Please do come back to another live stream. Let us know how you've got on, or follow up with questions and stuff for all of you as well, actually. So yeah. I think that's probably my best advice. Oh, the only other thing I would say is that water-based exercise for people with POTS is brilliant for the most part, except in one way. And that one key way is that when you get out of the pool and you go into the hot, steamy changing rooms, if you've got syncope, you'll be in trouble. So water-based exercise, what it basically does is like the water pressure on your body adds resistance, which is really great for getting fit, but it also supports in a kind of compressy way. So being up to your neck in water is like wearing full body compression stockings for POTS management. So swimming or like aquarobics or any kind of like water-based movementy thing can be really, really good exercise. But if you get out of the pool, don't immediately just head straight back to the changing rooms. Maybe put like a towel on your wheelchair and just park up next to the pool and put your feet up for a bit. So a lot of places will have like swim wheelchairs as well that can like get you from the changing room to the pool side if you're not allowed to take your own chair through. But yeah, doing that, just have a little lay down when you get out of the pool while your body adjusts to the sudden lack of full body compression. Then when you're half dry anyway, you can go and get changed. A lot of other very wise people, LinkFairy included, have also pointed out to me that you can just not get changed at the end and just chuck like a dressing gown or a big baggy coat or an enormous floaty dress over the top of your swimwear and deal with it all at home in your own time. So yeah, hopefully that's useful. Okay. You are very welcome. Thank you. Lovely. What can be done for a young teen who's experiencing not being able to open jaw very far? Eating and drinking is okay. It's been 4 days with a jaw issue. 4 days, like post subluxation or dislocation, is actually quite a short period of time. That said, if you haven't been seen by anyone, I would maybe like consider phoning the GP or getting a maxillofacial referral, or even just rocking up to A&E and demanding they bleep whoever the on-call maxillofacial person is. They will tell you they can't do that. They absolutely can. And mostly there's a list of bleep extension numbers on the back of the door. So you can just helpfully point out that they can in fact do that, and they probably should. That's for like the acute injury side of things. Immediately following any kind of like incident, issue, injury type thing, the basic kind of recovery stuff would be rest, ice, compression, and elevation. Obviously, your face is fairly well elevated anyway for the most part, but rest, talking a bit less, eating soft foods, very sensible. Ice, again, can really help with pain and with inflammation. Compression, slightly difficult to achieve, but the under the chin anti-snoring straps can be really good for holding your jaw in place and letting you rest all those like facial muscles. Hopefully those kind of standard recovery type options will be beneficial. If it's pain or inflammation, I would speak to GP about like medication options as well. But 4 days since onset is generally, that's part of like the acute inflammation phase. So treat it like any other injury, baby it, anti-inflammatories, ice, rest, strap it up a bit, see if it settles within a couple of weeks. But I would definitely run that past GP or A&E as well, just to kind of get a little bit of advice there and check everything's back where it belongs. Do you know if you can get compression socks in child size 1 for a 23-year-old adult with very tiny feet? Compression stockings can be made completely custom. So if you get referred to orthotics for compression stockings, they will take 1001 measurements and make them bespoke to fit your legs. They don't like doing it, but in your case, it sounds like it's going to be necessary because a lot of them, like the foot length, is just going to be ridiculous. Your other option might be to go for open toe versions. And you can just kind of like pull them over your toes, but that's probably going to be a little bit awkward. So I would get an orthotics referral to actually have some custom made for you, or go with LinkFairy's option to look at like kids compression stockings, because dinosaurs, why not? The one thing I would say, things that are made for pediatric purposes are generally less compressy than things that are made for adult purposes. So the amount of compression a child needs in order for support is generally a little bit less than what like a full-grown adult human needs. So you may find that like kids compression isn't compressy enough, but adults compression doesn't fit. If that's the case, orthotics referral to get custom compression stockings for you. Just have a little scroll through all of the things. Is that all of the questions? I think it is all of the questions. Fabulous. Okay, in the last 10 minutes, because we are heading for summer and it's terrible pot season. Oh, is that suddenly just gone really glary and washed out, or is that just me? Hopefully you can still see me at least a little bit. We'll just tilt that down. One of the things I did want to just touch on very briefly would be like heat strategies. I invoked the angry sky ball. I did. I'm sorry. I mentioned the summer and the sun has come back. Yes. So heat management strategies. So the first thing I would say is that for anyone who has issues with pots, and particularly those of us who get a little bit sweaty, evaporation cooling is your new best friend. So the process of sweating is that the way it cools you down is that when the sweat evaporates off your skin, the transition from liquid to aerosolized sweat molecules, basically, kind of the heat to power that transition comes from your body. So your body is used to get from like your body heat is used for that. Now, the difficulty with using sweat for that is that you're losing all of those wonderful electrolytes at the same time. And electrolytes, we need those on the inside where the hydration happens. So if you carry like a little spray bottle of water with you and just mist yourself with water, whether it's over your clothes or your pulse points or your face and neck, as that water evaporates off, it's doing the same thing as sweat, but you're not losing all those electrolytes at the same time. So spray bottles of water are a really good thing. The other thing that can be really, really useful are cooling towels. So these are basically just, thank you, LinkFairy. Please check the link as well. They're kind of absorbent fabric-y type things. Here's one I bought earlier. So these kinds of, they come in all kinds of colors. I've got some plain ones and some fun ones, try to match them to my outfits. You basically soak them in water, completely saturate them, and then squeeze most of it out. And then you give it a little bit of a shake, and they feel really, really, really cold to the touch. And then what you can do is just wear them, particularly around like the back of your neck, over your face if you get too hot, over your pulse points, that kind of thing. The other thing you can do with them is lay them over your body and then lay in front of an electric fan, and it will cool you down really, really effectively. So cooling towels, I think, are a really, really great one. That kind of thing can be brilliant as well. Vest, any tips for squeezing it out with weak sore hands? Oh, evaporation cooling vests. I have no experience with. Mine's a phase change one. You could try the kind of roll it up and stand on it approach. So I've done this with beach towels and things to try and get them dry. Basically, roll it into like a little sausage and then walk on it, but in the shower tray to squeeze the water out. And that bypasses the need for hands to be involved at all. Obviously, that only works at home because you won't have access to a shower tray. But you can also do it against the edge of a sink by, rather than like squeezing or wringing things, basically just like pushing the wet fabric against the edge of the sink by leaning on it with your forearms, and then the water will run off that and go down the little drain. The other thing you can finally do, if it's really, really like over soaked by accident, is roll it up in a towel. Just give the towel a little pat and then unroll it and hang the towel up to dry. And then it should be down to like damp levels rather than wet levels. So hopefully that's helpful. Because why not? I'm going to do a little bit of cheeky self-promotion here as well. So at the moment, I'm doing a module at university on sustainable healthcare principles. And one of the things I'm doing is writing an assignment that will allow me to develop a masterclass for heat management strategies. Now, my justification for doing this is that almost everyone I work with hates summer because it's such hard work to exist. So my hope is that I can come up with like a 30-minute one-on-one video chat appointment type thing that will allow me to basically teach heat management strategies in a semi-structured, efficient kind of way. So if you have any interest in that, please stay tuned on my Facebook page and stay tuned for updates. I will just drop a cheeky little update at the end of my next live stream as well. But I will be looking for beta testers to give feedback for that before I do a proper launch. So stay tuned for helpful advice, and hopefully this has been a useful one. Oh yeah, shameless self-promotion on both fronts. So the wonderful HMSA team have an Alexander Technique event on Sunday morning. You can find out more about hypermobility.org/events. If you've not done Alexander before, quite a lot of my patients have done it and they've found it really, really interesting, really helpful in different ways. So definitely find out a little bit more about that. Maybe it's for you, maybe it's not, but you won't know unless you turn up and find out. Lovely. Thank you very much. LinkFairy. Let me just. Oh yeah, LinkFairy, brilliant. Thank you. Damp hair for summer is brilliant. Little spray bottles of water, not just for like curly hair, also great for like cooling yourself down. So evaporation cooling in your own hair is a really, really brilliant thing. It is, however, important to let your hair fully dry out at some point. Otherwise, it does this weird thing where it gets super stretchy and really breakable. So don't keep your hair damp constantly all summer. At least let it dry out for a couple of hours a day. But other than that, yeah, brilliant strategy. Sun hats and things are great as well. And finally, if this has been useful, please, please, please do fill in the feedback form. It allows me and the HMSA to offer you better things in the future. So yeah, if you have any feedback, good, bad, whatever, we'd love to hear it. Thank you so much. I think that's pretty much it. So thank you very much for coming. We're going to wrap it up a couple of minutes early since we've run out of questions anyway. I will be back in a month's time. If you have questions you'd like to submit in advance, please feel free to message them to Hypermobility Facebook page team. Brain words. HMSA Facebook page. Thank you. Feel free to message it to them, or you can message my Facebook page or comment on any of the posts that advertise this event. That way you're pretty much guaranteed to get your question answered, whereas on some of the busier sessions we've sometimes had a few left over at the end that I then get to the following week. But yeah, if you've got any questions, feedback, etc., please get in touch. And thank you very much for coming. I hope you all have a wonderful evening, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your weekend as well.